Welcome back to Narrations. Some stories show motherhood as joyful and fulfilling. Some show it as difficult. And some show the version no one talks about, the quiet exhaustion, the identity loss, and the invisible weight carried every single day. Tonight's story is about a mother who is trying to hold everything together, while slowly falling apart. This is Tully. It's about burnout, about identity, and about the version of yourself you lose, and sometimes need to find again. Marlo doesn't look like someone who is failing. She looks like someone who is functioning. And that's the problem. Because from the outside, her life appears stable. She has a husband, Drew, who works long hours but provides for the family. She has 2 children, Sarah, who struggles socially at school, and Jonah, who has behavioral differences that make traditional schooling difficult. And now she is pregnant with her 3rd child. Everything about Marlo's life is full. Too full. The film introduces her in small, quiet moments that say more than any dramatic scene could. She wakes up tired, moves through the house with practiced efficiency, prepares meals, cleans, manages schedules, responds to her children's needs without hesitation. But there is no pause. No moment that belongs to her. Her days are built entirely around other people. At a family gathering, her brother Craig notices the strain she tries to hide. Craig lives a very different life. Comfortable, organized, financially secure. He offers to pay for something that feels almost indulgent. A night nanny. Someone who can come at night after the baby is born, take care of feedings, and allow Marlo to sleep. Marlo dismisses the idea immediately. Not because she doesn't need help, but because accepting help feels like admitting she cannot manage everything on her own. And she has built her identity around managing everything. After the baby is born, that identity begins to crack. The newborn, Mia, requires constant attention, feeding, crying, waking every few hours. Sleep becomes fragmented into small, unsatisfying pieces. Marlo's body is exhausted, her mind foggy, her patience stretched thin. Drew, though not intentionally neglectful, retreats into his routine. He works during the day and spends his evenings distracted, often absorbed in video games, existing in the same house but not fully present in the chaos of parenting. Marlo carries the weight alone. The nights are the hardest. She sits in dim lighting, feeding the baby while the rest of the house sleeps. The silence feels heavy. Time stretches. Her thoughts wander into places she doesn't want them to go, doubts, regrets, memories of who she used to be. There are small but telling moments. She forgets things. She loses track of time. She stares at herself in the mirror and barely recognizes the person looking back. Motherhood for Marlo has become less about love and more about survival. Eventually, exhaustion pushes her to reconsider Craig's offer. She hires the night nanny. And that's when Tully enters her life. Tully is young, bright, effortlessly energetic. She arrives at night like a contrast to everything Marlo feels during the day. Where Marlo is drained, Tully is alive. Where Marlo is overwhelmed, Tully is calm. She takes over the nighttime routine with ease, feeding the baby, cleaning, even organizing parts of the house while Marlo finally sleeps. At first, Marlo feels uncomfortable. Letting someone else take care of her child feels unnatural. But slowly, she begins to relax. For the first time in months, she sleeps. And that changes everything. Tully doesn't just help with the baby. She helps with the atmosphere of the house. She bakes cupcakes. She cleans without being asked. She creates a sense of lightness that had been missing. And more importantly, she talks to Marlo. Not like someone who is judging her, but like someone who understands her. Their conversations become the emotional center of the film. They talk about motherhood, about expectations, about who Marlo used to be before her life became defined by responsibilities. Tully asks questions that no one else has asked. What did you love before this? Who were you? And slowly, Marlo begins to remember. She remembers her younger self, spontaneous, confident, full of possibility. She remembers a version of her that feels very far away now. Tully represents something more than help. She represents freedom. A version of life that feels lighter, easier. And as their bond grows, the line between who Marlo is and who she used to be begins to blur. At first, Tully feels like relief. Not dramatic relief. Not life-changing in an obvious way. But something quieter. The kind of relief that shows up in small things: uninterrupted sleep, a kitchen that feels a little more organized, mornings that don't begin with overwhelming exhaustion. Marlo begins to depend on those small changes. Each night, when Tully arrives, it feels like someone is stepping in to hold the life Marlo has been carrying alone. Tully moves easily through the house, taking care of the baby, cleaning up without being asked, sometimes even leaving small thoughtful touches behind: freshly baked muffins, neatly folded laundry, a sense that someone is paying attention to the details Marlo no longer has the energy to manage. But more than the physical help, it's the conversations that begin to matter. Late at night, when the house is quiet, Marlo and Tully talk. And those conversations feel different from anything Marlo has experienced in a long time. Tully doesn't speak to her as a mother. She speaks to her as a person. She asks about her past. About who she was before marriage, before children, before routines replaced spontaneity. And slowly, Marlo opens up. She talks about her younger self, the version of her that felt alive, impulsive, full of possibility. She remembers nights that didn't revolve around feeding schedules, decisions that weren't measured against responsibility, a life where she was the center of her own story. Tully listens with admiration. Almost like she is hearing a story about someone she knows very well. The more they talk, the more Tully begins to feel familiar. Not just comforting. Familiar. Marlo starts noticing how easy it is to be around her. How Tully seems to understand things without explanation. How she anticipates what Marlo needs before she says it. At the same time, something else begins shifting. Marlo starts reclaiming small pieces of herself. She laughs more. She feels lighter. She even allows herself moments of intimacy with Drew again. Not because anything in their relationship has fundamentally changed, but because Marlo has enough emotional space to feel something beyond exhaustion. For a while, it feels like balance has returned. But the truth is more fragile than it appears. Because the version of balance Marlo is experiencing depends entirely on Tully's presence. And that dependence begins to deepen. Marlo starts looking forward to the nights not just for sleep, but for Tully. For the conversations. For the version of herself that seems to exist more clearly when Tully is around. There is a sense that Tully is not just helping her. She is becoming something essential. One night, after a long conversation, Tully suggests they go out. Just for a while. Just to feel something different. Marlo hesitates at first, but then agrees. They leave the house together. For the first time in a long time, Marlo steps outside her routine. The night feels unfamiliar. Music, lights, movement, a version of the world she hasn't been part of for years. Tully moves through it effortlessly. Confident. Alive. She encourages Marlo to relax, to let go, to stop thinking about responsibilities for a moment. And Marlo tries. She drinks. She laughs. She lets herself feel something close to freedom again. But as the night goes on, the energy shifts. There's a subtle instability beneath the surface. Moments where Tully's behavior feels slightly off. Moments where reality feels just a little distorted. Still, Marlo follows her. Because letting go feels easier than questioning it. On the drive back home, everything changes. Marlo is behind the wheel. Tully sits beside her. The road is quiet. Dark. And in a brief moment of distraction, a shift in attention, a flicker of exhaustion, the car veers. The crash is sudden, violent, and disorienting. When Marlo regains awareness, she is alone. Tully is gone. At the hospital, as Marlo recovers, the truth begins to surface. There was no night nanny. No one had been coming to the house. No one had been helping with the baby. No one named Tully existed in the way Marlo believed. Tully was not a separate person. She was a projection. A manifestation of Marlo's younger self. The version of her that existed before responsibility, before exhaustion, before motherhood consumed her identity. Everything Tully said, everything she represented, came from within Marlo. Her mind, overwhelmed by stress, sleep deprivation, and emotional isolation, created Tully as a way to cope, as a way to survive. The realization is not presented as shocking horror. It is quiet, sad, and deeply human. Marlo is not broken. She is overwhelmed. And Tully was her mind's way of reminding her of who she used to be, and what she still needed. After the accident, Marlo begins to rebuild her life differently. Not perfectly. Not suddenly. But with awareness. She talks to Drew more honestly. She asks for help. She stops trying to carry everything alone. Motherhood does not become easier. But it becomes more shared. More real. More sustainable. And Marlo begins to understand something important. She does not need to become her younger self again. She does not need to lose herself completely in motherhood either. She can exist somewhere in between. Tully is not about a night nanny. It is about the invisible weight of motherhood. About the parts of yourself that feel lost in the process of caring for others. And about the quiet truth that asking for help is not failure. Sometimes survival means remembering who you were. And allowing yourself to still exist. If you enjoyed listening to this narration, please like, share, and subscribe for more movie stories. I'll see you in the next one.